Believe it or not, although it was alleged in the UK, this was not put to Depp for it to be rebutted in the US trial. So before we head to our cross-examination and redirect testimony, let's head over to the UK so that you can understand what he was claiming in the UK case. There was no drug use claimed in the US, but in the UK case, she claimed that Depp was high on drugs, a lot of pills and other things. But she used the term monster here to illustrate his apology. However, in the US, this is also inconsistent. Depp says in his statement that his children were on the trip with him and there was no incident on the trip. On cross-examination, it was revealed that the use of monster was evidenced because of text from Adam Go saying, "Hope for no monster attacks." He also denied taking drugs because his children were in the next room. Depp asserts that the prenup was offered and they couldn't reach an agreement. As for Amber Heard's cross-examination, Amber Heard said that the incident happened 2 days prior to the assault, but in the US, this was not the allegation. It was pretty much they went straight to the event, basically. Without much to go by, here are the external communications. 13th of January 2015, according to Amber Heard, things were good. It was also noted she is going to fly to Tokyo to meet up with Depp. 27th of January 2015 at 6:11 p.m., that's California time, Cowan receives an email from Dr. Kipper saying that Depp wants a prenup and they have been fighting over this from Japan. At least in the UK, 10 plus hours after publishing the article. As you can see here, the time zone really does place the email as being ahead of time or being sent after the incident had happened, and he's saying that the incident was because of a fight with him and Amber Heard. 28th of January 2015, phone therapy with Amber Heard by Dr. Cowan states that she was unhappy as her and Jay were planning a wedding, and Amber sees Depp's sister as an obstacle, as it wasn't planned for her to be the planner or was approved. Amber was unhappy that Depp wanted a prenup and both had sought representation. What likely happened was Chrissy suggested this to Depp. Depp suggested this to Amber Heard. Amber Heard was furious, and without much to go by as to the motivations of the reasons why she was angry or what was done by her statement, JD said he was still deaf. This, in my honest opinion, is the biggest reveal, because it is more likely than not that after he has seen her angry, etc., he does what he does always. He just placates and reminds her, hey, I do love you, etc. This is still death. So I believe that is the most likely scenario that could have occurred in that event, so that it doesn't escalate while they were supposed to, especially when he has his kids next door, because he wouldn't want them to do it. So it would have been an instantaneous submission to whatever she was asking him to do. For someone that's weaponizing Davo and defamation, he's doing a very poor job, because usually you would allege violence if violence is being alleged against you because of Davo, but he hasn't alleged violence here by Amber Heard. He just says it didn't happen. So with all that context aside, we now head to Australia 2015.
How often have you used substances throughout your life?
Having started with my mother's nerve pills at 11, of course, that's around the age that you're introduced to marijuana. You're introduced to, and also depending on where you're living and who you're associating with and who's around the neighborhood. I wasn't shy to try a substance
I wasn't shy to try a substance.
The effect of it would
just see if we could be numb.
Maybe even take a bit more of the edge off. So I started at 11. The characterization of my substance, quote unquote, substance abuse that's been delivered by Ms. Heard is grossly embellished, and I'm sorry to say, but is
Bullshit. Say bullshit.
is just plainly false.
Fair enough.
I think it was an easy target for her to hit, because once you've trusted somebody for a certain amount of years and you've
she would
told
have known
them
this.
all the secrets of your life,
That's where they hit.
that information then of course can be used against you, especially if it's taken to a point that is teetering on impossible, and teeters over impossible, in fact, at times. It's so, I am not some maniac who needs
This opens a lot of doors
to
for the
be
defense,
high
though.
or loaded all the time.
I'm not some maniac.
In Australia, from before Australia and in Australia, I had been off of alcohol for, I believe it was
It's
about
curious
18
to me
months.
that the defense is letting this narrative go, but it opens doors for them.
This is a schedule for your wedding weekend, right, Ms. Hurd?
No, it's not. It's a proposed draft of a schedule.
Oh, here we go.
Quite different.
Do you see where it says 7 p.m. rehearsal dinner?
Yes, I see that.
After dance
And the next
party
item on
and
the
drugs
list
and
says,
music.
quote, after dance party and drugs and music, end quote, right?
That is correct.
Love this.
So you plan to have drugs
Oh my
at your
God.
wedding?
It was
Someone
literally
you
on the
characterize
agenda.
someone
I
you
didn't think he was
characterize as
literally
a drug addict?
To be fair, we were going to have separate parties, as I mentioned. So a bridal
after?
party before this. The schedule ended up changing quite a bit, and this is a draft clearly that was sent before there were a lot of changes made.
What does that even
The
mean?
bridal
So your
party
original
and
It
the-
idea,
doesn't matter.
Ms. Hurd,
She's saying
the
that was for her
original
bachelor
idea
party.
was
That's
to
fair.
have a rehearsal dinner with your husband, the drug addict, the monster, and then do drugs with your girlfriends on the island after your rehearsal dinner.
That's what she said.
I realize that's what the email suggests, but that wasn't
No,
a
it's
plan.
not what it suggests, Ms. Hurd.
That's what it says.
In that email.
Right, but what I'm trying to say is that the schedule ended up changing. We ended up doing the little,
So your
as I
original
called
idea
it,
was
cuddle
to do
puddle
drugs.
before.
Yeah, your original idea was to do drugs on an island after your rehearsal dinner to the drug-fueled monster that you were about to marry, right?
The as the email suggests, there was going to
Email
be
doesn't suggest.
weed on the
Look at
island.
Deb's male lawyer there. I forget his name. He's just nodding his head.
This reference to you.
You said cuddle
Say
puddle.
cuddle puddle one more time.
I wish you understood what you are and who you are and how you f me over and make me feel sick of myself. There's still fine art forgiveness with that on. He's gonna need to skin around. I can't find the kindergarten.
I should write what?
I can't find the kindergarten.
Here's what, all what?
I know, but it would have been, hello, it would have been where the initial injury, well, actually, it could be in here too. Probably not like this, we should have been.
I'm sure Nathan. I just want a pen.
The majority of the blood, Debbie, is downstairs, but I went through that really carefully. Oh, wait, there's someone trying to clean something up. My reasoning, which may be wrong, should be where all the blood is, and that's down there.
You want me to take it? Let me go give it to Heinz and then I'll come back.
Yeah. I looked at it really carefully, but Dad's down there, he couldn't see it either.
Okay.
Didn't find it. Oh. All right,
We're
there.
not getting the trash in the images.
My advice, Edward's gonna take care of himself, we're gonna take care of him. They can't be together now since the problem is gonna come back. So stay with me, but.
No, but I'm just wondering if there's another person. That's what I'm saying.
Well, I asked those same questions earlier, and it all goes like that. For that reason, like he's not going to be manipulated. He's a strong guy.
Yeah, is there a trash that has bandages in it?
It works, man. Is he gone?
Yes. Which I feel like it's maybe one of the first things we can't, when I was getting
Now, look through this. I looked through it once. I didn't see anything that looked like flesh. It's the thing, but that is. I bet it's in here. He's got this all over. I mean, he's going to get infected, so that we have to start with ours.
How big of a piece of skin are you looking for?
You're looking at this. You're looking at like a third of the tip of the finger. And it's that. I mean, he's going to get cellulitis. That loves him a little bit too. Maybe she should have something. I told Daddy it's probably used to this.
Can I give her like 50 of Cerebral?
What?
50 of Cerebral?
Yeah.
300 grams?
Yeah.
She only usually takes 25. Are you okay with 50?
Oh, the Cerebral?
Yeah.
I'd be okay with 100, but give her 50. I'll tell you what's going in that. This is guilt. This is guilt.
She won't take 50. I gave her 25 and 300 and said we reassess in a little bit.
As you can hear from the audio tapes, Amber Heard is crying uncontrollably in the background. At this point, Ben King had found the finger and they left to the hotel before going to the hospital. Depp says in the UK case that he didn't take any MDMA or other drugs, and Amber Heard did not find a bag of pills. Remember, MDMA was not his drug of choice, as he said, for Hicksville, and this was mainly done by Amber Heard. Amber Heard also done ecstasy on the plane, as she confessed. Nonetheless, Depp had actually gone on to say that they were actually arguing about the post-nup, and this made Amber Heard angry. She said she wasn't included in his will and not even having joint credit cards, and tried to calm her down and retreated to 7 bathrooms. And various points he hid in all of them to avoid Amber Heard. She continued flailing insults. He went downstairs to the kitchen. Amber Heard had followed, screaming abuse. He poured himself a glass and drank it and broke his sobriety. She came down and accused him of drinking, picked up the bottle and it threw at him, which missed him narrowly. He drank more, and this made Amber Heard even more mad, and she threw the second one, and this was the one that severed his finger. He said that the shock was what resulted with the blood and paint, and he denies the allegation that the phone was the cause of his injury. And it must be noted that Depp's team actually noted Amber Heard as being upstairs, and Depp was downstairs when all this had happened, which is reflected in the audio, because Amber Heard does actually come downstairs while they were looking for the finger. Medical assistants arrived and they took him to the hotel and tried to administer first aid. Malcolm Connolly testified he was one to do the administering of the first aid at the hotel. Stephen was also at the hotel. He corroborates this in his deposition. Now, to remove all doubt, this was actually an oversight on my end. She actually pointed out that there was an audio tape with a lot longer that actually details how the finger was lost. Line 10 noted that this is another transcript of the Australian house. He completely cut the top of his finger off on a broken bottle, and we found the piece and we had to put it on ice. Connolly says he doesn't know who he's sending this text to, and he was corrected that it wasn't even a text, it was actually an audio. So this does remove all doubt. And in fact, if you want even more corroboration of how true this event is, and it was more likely cut with a bottle thrown by Amber Heard, you just have to look no further than Christina Sexton's testimony, because Christina Sexton says Depp had cut his own finger off with a broken bottle. We already know that this is not possible, and this is not inconsistent from me either. In terms of how I'm looking at this, because like I said, I don't believe Christina Sexton's account for most of these incidents, especially with how inconsistent she was in regards to Hicksville. However, this was her saying that Amber Heard told her this incident. What could be more pertinent than that? This is not her having an eyewitness account, which I have to which of course she wasn't there. So this holds a lot more weight. If Amber Heard told her in 2019, 4 years after this incident had already gone down in the hotel before the deposition, then well, it is reasonable to conclude that a bottle was thrown and it hit Depp the way it was described by Depp. And if you're still doubting, according to Depp himself, he told a few people what actually happened to his finger, but told them to keep quiet to protect Amber Heard. Bruce Whitkin was one of them. In fact, Bruce actually inquired about Depp's finger after Australia, and also it was told to Cowan by Amber. And the bottle is consistent with Sexton's account and Banks that the finger was cut off in this altercation. Text from Depp to Bruce says, "I'm good, just got a effed finger." Depp also texted, "Left this morning, we had a great conversation. There is no way to make it." Point of note, Debbie, is that she testifies that Amber Heard tried to instigate him. Debbie elaborates further, referencing her going room to room. Debbie has seen this happen way before Australia. It just so happens that this is what Depp said happened in regard to Australia. It is also just so happens that Depp recounts this same phenomena happened in Australia in the PLT 343 audio.
You know, I got mad at you in Australia about this. I said, baby, I want to trust you. It's hard for me not to try and work it out. If you want to be the person that's like, I need to cool down, help me do that, give that to you. But I can't give it to you if you always let me down and forget.
Because I gave you a time limit, because I said I'll be back in 3 minutes. So I'm just...
No, it's different.
If it happens...
It's different. You never...
If it happens, I'm just going to say, look, I need some time. That's it.
I'm telling you, that will make it worse.
No.
I guarantee you it will.
If you're throwing punches...
I'm not talking about throwing punches. I'm talking about an argument.
Right. In arguments, you tend to throw punches.
I'm talking about arguments. I'm not talking about the times when it's got physical. I'm talking about arguments.
Just to get out of a bad situation while it's happening before it gets worse. In Australia, when we had the big fight where I lost the tip of my finger, at least 5 bathrooms and 2 bedrooms I went to
avoid talking to me, to avoid
escape
working it out. That's
to escape
the problem.
the fight.
You don't escape the fight. You escape the solution.
No.
You escape the solution.
No.
You escape figuring it out. We cannot work it out if you run away to the bathroom every time.
Listen to me. Listen to me. A boxer can't go 12 rounds without a minute break.
I'm not giving you a minute break. You do it at minute 3 at the beginning of an argument.
No. There are rounds, man. And when it gets too fucking hairy, the ref splits them apart or whatever. But all I'm saying is, you can't have a solution if the argument just keeps mounting and mounting and mounting and mounting. I go into the bathroom and sit on the floor. Bam, 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 here you come. I come out. Fight, crazy, escalated. I split again, I go to another fucking bathroom or a bedroom or something. Knock, 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 bang, bang, bang. You kept coming to get me.
Every single time I come to get you, what am I saying? 90% of the time. Stop, let's work this out. Please, I don't want to do this. That's what you're ignoring. That's the really crazy thing that I cannot understand. The self-delusion is so fucking deep that you are able to tell me right now all of this and mean it. How can you say that to me and ignore that 90% of the time what that bam 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 is you're escaping me like I'm some sort of like vicious harping bird, you know, in a Hitchcock movie, and you can't get away from me? Well, you're ignoring and blatantly is that every single time I'm saying like this, I'm saying this to you. Let's stop. Babe, let's stop. Let's work it out. I'm sorry, can we talk? Let's get over this. Let's stop. Can we stop fighting? That is what's so insane. You sit here and you tell me as if I'm so annoying to you that you can't escape me.
7 times.
I don't know what 7 times you're talking about. I don't
5 bathrooms, 2 bedrooms.
You were coked out of your mind. You were crazy. You didn't sleep for days. You were delusional. You were psychotic. Literally, you went into psychosis. Do not tell me about your behavior during that escapade. I have tried to completely block it out.
And I threw the vodka bottles.
You can poke an animal, no matter how calm they are. You can fucking poke them.
Did I throw the
You
vodka
threw
bottles?
bottles. You threw me.
No.
You hit me. Yes, you did.
You threw.
You're right. Your 3 nights of skipping sleep, your bags of cocaine,
After
your
you-
Red Bull and your booze is all. You know what, Johnny? You know what? You want to hear what you want to hear? You're right. Let's get everyone in here to just pamper you and fluff you and tell you you're right. You know what? Your memory's probably
That's how you feel.
No,
about me.
your memory's probably equal to mine. It has nothing to do with your psychosis. It had nothing to do with the cocaine. It had nothing to do with the booze. It had nothing to do with your meds. It had nothing to do with your lack of sleep and how that puts you into a manic state. You're right. You are accurate. No, your memory's accurate. Your memory's accurate. You got it now. Your memory's perfectly accurate. You have stand-up man.
Hey,
No. Yeah, you're right. I did. So you know what? You're probably right. Your memory, Johnny, is probably spot on and perfect, comparable to mine. I was sober, but that's fine. You can guess it all you want. I remember that. I remember that. You're out of your mind.
Yes, I was.
You tell me about you know what island? Forget it. I don't want to fight about Australia. I don't want to talk to you about Australia. If you want to persist and never let go of a goddamn thing, you'll never ever. We wouldn't be happy with anybody. No one's gonna be happy.
How much more proof do you need that this incident was overwhelmingly one person being aggressive to the other? And it must be noted here that in the same audio on September, when he kept saying he has to split, Amber Heard says that will make things worse. But let's go back to the Australia incident to further show what happened in Australia and to give a much more concise account. In her motion to dismiss the accounts that she watched Depp pull out a bag of MDMA when he was supposed to be clean and sober, it got heated. Depp had slapped her and shoved her to the ground. Next morning, she went downstairs and Depp was still up as he had taken 8 MDMA pills. Him and Amber Heard got into a fight that Depp had made physical. He threw cans and unopened bottles at her. Amber Heard tells Depp to go to sleep, yet he began fighting about their upcoming marriage. Depp and Amber Heard at this point are already married. That must be noted. She said she was shoved onto the ping pong table and it collapsed underneath her, breaking 2 panes. She was naked, barefoot, and covered in alcohol and glass. When you look at the exhibit in the US case, you will see that the ping pong table is actually intact and not really broken in 2 panes as as alleged here and collapse in of itself. She says while JD was smashing the phones to smithereens, he severely injured his finger, cutting the tip of it off. Claims she did not throw a vodka bottle or any kind of bottle at Depp to cause the injury. Security guards came up 24 hours later. They were worried by all the blood he lost and flew him to hospital. Claims she had a busted lip, swollen nose, cut over the body, and all the friends, family, and professional medics witnessed, I'll repeat that, witnessed all of this happen, and they have administered Seroquel to her per the audio tapes. I will let you come to your own conclusion as to what happened in that audio. If they have seen her and seen all this injury like that she says, this is the same thing that she says in regards to the therapist note. They have seen this happen, so they must have reacted or done something, right? The same way that the therapist note would write down some form of note that you said that you told to the therapist. That would happen. Moving on, in the UK statement, Amber Heard alleges that Christie raised the idea of the prenup, and allegedly she agreed to sign whatever and admits to arguments about prenup in Australia or postnup. But it wasn't about pre or postnup, but Christie's involvement that she agreed to it. She describes a 3-day hostage situation. She was apparently trapped in a remote location with no way to leave. According to her, she received verbal abuse. This was hurtful and upsetting. Grabbed her by her neck, shoved her to the fridge, screaming, "I effing hate you." She took the bottle he was threatening and smashed it to the ground. This provoked him further to pick up another bottle and threw it at the wall next to her. She retreated to the bar and he was throwing bottles at her. Notice, it's completely different now from what she wrote in her motion to dismiss, making a lot more allegations when Depp had responded to what actually happened. Nonetheless, she thought she doesn't want him to headbutt her, as she was worried it might break her nose. That does sound very familiar, but continuing, she said there was an old-fashioned mint green house phone mounted to the wall. He picked up the wall-mounted phone and smashed it against the wall, and it was smashed to pieces. She doesn't know how JD lost his finger, as she said, that he was in a state that he can't remember, as he drank a lot and took a lot of drugs and was completely out of control. She hadn't seen people for 3 days, allegedly. She says she only saw the finger cut off in the morning, that she didn't see it being cut off. She said, I think we read your motion to dismiss, but anyway. Now, Depp does describe the phone being plastic and wall-mounted, but not retro. Malcolm Connolly, his security, says it's quite hard to notice Depp when he's drunk, and there was no scratches or injuries to Amber Heard's face, and attests to Jerry Judge cleaning up after he had left, with Depp to go to the hotel and in turn to go to the hospital, and Jerry Judge had stayed with Amber Heard. During the cross-exam of Depp, he admits to procuring MDMA for Amber Heard. This is why I said it will come pertinent later, because he did order MDMA, and he says the MDMA was for Amber Heard and the cocaine was for him. So he admits he did use drugs for this day, but the context is a bit different, because again, the precursor was already there. They were already going to do drugs on the island for the wedding. He also says that he wasn't alone with Amber Heard, and security was around for all the days that Amber Heard is alleging they weren't, and she was alone, and there was no 3-day ordeal. Says he ripped the phone off the wall. He later expounded more on the post-nup, saying that Amber Heard was in tears and riled up, saying that the attorney had psychologically tortured her. He also admits to shouting or reprimanding against Amber Heard's lawyer. Now, for avoidance of doubt in regards to what Depp had admitted to regarding ripping the phone off the wall, because this has been a very contentious issue and has been very much talked about in regards to how he lost his finger. And she was claiming that he had lost his finger due to smashing a Bakelite phone on the wall, an old school retro Bakelite phone to be precise. And when she was cross-examined about this particular claim, she went on to say that she was there and she saw it. However, in VA, The defense was she doesn't really know how he lost his finger. Opinions aside, because many people will have them, the facts will always speak for itself. Did you believe at any point that this was somebody that you could say, okay, I'll give the benefit of the doubt because or for whatever reason? Did you even consider giving her the benefit of the doubt in any way?
Oh, absolutely. When I first read the witness statement and read the evidence, I'm going to be receptive to it. I'm not going to shut that out entirely. The problem was the inconsistencies with it, the problems with it that were demonstrated over the course of the trial. The big, like, obvious one was the changing the story. Between days, she realized that there was photographic evidence that was going to contradict, it was going to prove that what she was saying could not have happened. And so her response to that was to come back into court and, oh, oops, I forgot, I need to change the dates, which was funny. She did the same thing in Virginia as well. But she did it very obviously in the UK, and it was also very obvious because Whitney did it as well. Whitney made the same, suddenly remembered, that these dates were different than we had originally said they were in our witness statements. So a lot of little things like that. Just the way that she did always have some explanation for everything. It just doesn't come across as credible, when you're never at fault, you've never done anything wrong, everything is the other person's fault, and you always have an explanation for the stuff that makes you look bad, like, shitting in someone's bed. Then, you just come across as not a particularly credible person. So to me, even in the black and white transcripts, it was pretty clear what was going on.
Continuing with the timeline, on the 14th of March 2015, Cowan actually notes that Amber and Johnny had been apart, and this brings up issues of attachment and codependency and abandonment, and also she is unable to regulate her emotions. Remember, this is just a week ago. They just had Australia. 15th of March 2015, Cowan notes of a text exchange between Amber Heard and him, and he reports that at 1:30 a.m. that Johnny showed up effed up but left on a peaceful note. That is quite important later on. 17th of March 2015 shows a message sent to Debbie Lloyd from Depp stating his gratitude for her help. This was the communications after Kipper had decided to fire Depp. So this is a bit of context to actually show why he's feeling like this, because he is feeling that they are going to mutually separate at this point. Again, hold on to her saying Depp was f***ed up. 19th of March 2015, Depp messages Dr. Kipper and offers his sincere apologies, understands his decision, noting it was the right thing to do. Goes on to explain why he understands why he's made such a decision to no longer support him for the care that he's been providing for the last year. With all that's considered and the entire context behind all of this and how emotional it is, he says he's going to chop off his other finger in order to serve as a reminder not to chop off this finger. It has been presented by the defense to say this is him admitting to chopping off his own finger for Australia. If he's saying he's going to chop off his finger so that he can remember, so that he can serve as a reminder not to chop off his other finger, then we have to look at what the chopping off of the finger could metaphorically mean, because clearly he didn't chop off his other finger. Not understood by now basically means I'm not going to make the same mistake twice. So the same mistake twice, going back to Australia, based on the objective evidence, based on the fact that he asked for a prenup, that was rebuffed. Based on the fact that he asked for a postnup, that wasn't his idea. He admits that wasn't his idea, so he turned around to actually say F it and scream down the lawyer's throat. Obviously, it's now being used against him, but let's look at the objective facts. He messages Christy Dombrowski to say, let's go for an annulment. That was the mistake. The mistake was going for the post-nup. The remedy would have been to go for the annulment. So when he references Australia about chopping off his finger, because Kipper knows fully well who threw the bottle at him, because beforehand, as played all through the audios and to establish what had gone on, he also goes into the house and says, oh, she did it, that's guilt, etc. That meant that what was heard before coming inside to look for the finger, he was already told that Amber was the one that cut my finger off. So based on that testimony alone, that was the mistake. So he's gonna cut off his other finger so that he can serve as a reminder not to make the same mistake twice, which is losing Dr. Kipper, who has been there for him in his roughest moments, who went to the hospital with him and went through all of that with him, and he's going to lose all of that just because he could not curb his need to stay sober and follow the compliance. Clearly, we know the events that happened within Australia, but at the same time, he's blaming himself here simply because of the fact that he chose to drink with his wife. He chose to do all these things with his wife. Again, if you're believing his version of events, that's what it would be. Is on the road to like say, you know what, maybe I'm not trying so hard in this relationship. Maybe I'm not doing this. I am going to cut off my own finger so that I can remind me not to make the same mistake again, because the mistake was bringing up the post-nup. Now is a good time to actually bring up August 18, 2014 once again, where Kipper expresses concerns about Depp's anger and how he reacts. Like I gave in the previous example, this is the context behind the self-blaming that we see. Kipper already sees this. This is likely why he is encouraging that he does not give up on the program, but himself to look inwards. Based on that context, it does seem like he's doing that in this moment, that he's finally looking inwards days later, and he's like, oh shoot, he was right. I am externalizing a lot. I am looking at Amber for every issue rather than looking at myself and what I could have possibly done wrong. So with this entire context, Kipper changed his mind in order to continue with the treatment, because it seems like it was like beating a patient unjustly for doing his best but failing at times. At the same time, Depp does message Bruce Witkin saying, I'm good, just got an effed finger. And this was again when after he's been to surgery and after he's got the finger into a cask. That is very important later, so do put a pin on that. Depp also texted Bruce Witkin saying Amber left this morning, that they both had a great conversation, that there is no way to make it, we will not make it, and she understood. So there was no real context behind it. It just basically suggests that they were no longer going to be together and they were parting ways. On the 21st of March 2015, it knows that patient is in good spirits and describes pain level to be 6 out of 10. There's basis for this. From 14:00 to 8:15, pain level decreased, however, stabilizing at 5 out of 10. Please note that Depp was planning on having a quiet night with Amber on this occasion. On the 23rd of March 2015 at 1:20, Depp states that Amber Heard is trying to argue with him. He was encouraged to go to bed. This leads up to what was alleged in the UK case and in the US case, as well as a motion to dismiss.
And was whacking her repeatedly in the face with the other as I was standing there. Travis pulls them apart,